It doesn't really matter how much of an untouchable, exploitative monopoly Hollywood becomes. They lap up a story about misunderstood creatives overthrowing a cold corpocratic regime. So for all the attempts by the Megalopolis marketing team's campaigns to frame this film as the underdog alternative to mainstream Hollywood, any insinuations that major studios passed on the film because they don't like what it's saying don't seem to have really stuck. What has been widely acknowledged by everyone on every side of the Megalopolis debate is that Francis Ford Coppola's creative style and filmmaking approach no longer gels with the modern commercial desires of modern Hollywood studios. More's the pity, given that we have decades of examples of films that showcase what blockbusters could look like back when both parties could compromise, messy as those compromises allegedly always were behind the scenes. Tried and tested as the synopsis is, there is an added sense of intrigue in knowing that it is coming from a director who, around 45 years ago, genuinely tried to change the very infrastructure of Hollywood forever. As fleeting as my knowledge is of the lofty ambitions surrounding the production of One from the Heart and the vision of Zoetrope Studios, it's hard not to see Megalopolis as Coppola's reliving of that period of his career through the lens of a cinematic epic. And as a result, Coppola's Ego Trip is a monumentally different beast to any other ode to the creator I've ever seen. And I think Ego Trip is the appropriate assessment when tussling with the vast commentaries on society meshed with autobiographical elements that make up the narrative. In a world where the wealthy elite have no concept or understanding of the past or future because the now is where their opulence dwells, leaving them incapable of tackling the ever multiplying ails of the common man, a creative genius and mogul has cracked the code of reality, able to render every instance of time and space as a frozen portrait in which he can see the full burgeoning potential of every detail within. The environment, the constructs, the people. His latest creation, a substance that is malleable to the will of the beholder. His new ambition, to raise the foundations of civilization and replace it with a whole society constructed by this substance that will allow every person in the world the freedom to achieve whatever they desire, a utopia in the present that affords the human race any future that they can conceive of. In many ways, Megalopolis is fully plugged into the cyclical, slow burn, destructive nature of the current model of Western society that we live in. The finger squarely pointed at the wealth-hoarding, status-obsessed powermongers, spouting strict moral codes that only further expose their degradation as they outwardly act against the morals they promote, laughing and dancing atop the rotting hulk that they helped to bring to ruin. In isolation, these scenes come across as unabashedly anti-authority, placing the greed of the powerful directly at odds with the well-being of humanity. And yet the savior that will lead us from these inept hucksters is still one of the elite, related to most of the power players of New Rome, a celebrity and extremely wealthy. The difference is squarely rooted in his status as a right-brained artiste. He's accused of all the sins that his extended family members regularly revel in: infidelity, murder, abuse. But unlike these reckless hypocrites around him, all of Caesar Catilina's accusations are the products of misunderstanding or smear campaigns by the less enlightened, some of whom decry his vision of Megalopolis as a foolish dream, while others simply resent him for not being as lecherous and destructive as them, which they interpret as an insulting superiority complex. The common man so often referred to by Caesar in his great vision is seldom if ever interacted with. This is no surprise in regards to the out-of-touch elite that Caesar criticizes. But he doesn't speak with them either. He simply knows what is best for them, and we can only sit and hope that he can complete his utopian project in time to set the masses free before they are universally corrupted by the MAGA SS blended regime being pushed by the most narcissistic and exploitative descendants of old money and the cynically ambitious ilk of new money. All of this is what opposes the more straightforward idea of Megalopolis as anti-authority or anti-capitalist. Whichever side wins in this film, there is still a wealthy authority leading the charge, standing above the masses. The new world vision of Caesar looks backwards just as often as it imagines something wholly new, if not more so. For all their testaments towards the freedom to ask questions, nobody ever questions the right to rule, the imbalance of status and wealth that prompted such corruption. The promise of salvation still comes with an end result where a mega-rich individual leads the way. It's just the correct mega-rich individual whose uncompromised vision is allowed to go forward. There is so much to aspire to in the vision of the world Caesar envisions, much like the communal creator-driven Hollywood Coppola has yearned for half a century. And there's a refreshing level of sincerity to be found in the way they push for it. Equally interesting, however, is how much of it is still rooted in existing social structures. Inadvertently, I think, begging the question, how much can things change the more they stay the same?